And alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lah wa man yudlil fala hadiya lah. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدع وكل بدعة ضلالة ثم أما بعد. So inshallah, today we're going to start off with the studying of Tuhfah al-Wasaabiyyah, which is a book in Nahw, which is Arabic grammar. And of course, we know that Nahw is from the most noble of all the sciences of the Arabic language. And it's the one science that opens up the understanding of the Arabic language. And of course, we understand the importance of actually learning the Arabic language in its totality, as far as the meanings of the words and the grammar and the sarf, which is the morphology, the changing of the verb forms. And this goes back to, anyways, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Yusuf. He said, "Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyyan la'allakum ta'qilun." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Inna anzalnahu." He sent down this book, Qur'anan, as a Qur'an Arabiyyan, as an Arabic Qur'an. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. He said, with the hopes that you will use your minds, that you will think, that you will ponder on this book, and you will look at and you come to the conclusion of the truth that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and that that everything in the Quran is the truth, and everything in the Sunnah is the truth, and you come to that conclusion. And the only way that you can come to that conclusion here is, like he said, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Quran down in the Arabic language, so the people will use their minds. Because obviously the Arabic language is a language where it kind of forces you to use your mind, to think deeply, because of the strength of the meanings and the strength of the phrases and the wordings, and how everything's put together in the Arabic language has the most vast vocabulary and the strongest meaning. So when you sit down, and that's why you see that even though we might speak in the pure Arabic language now, we still have to go back whenever we read statements from the people of the past, or even some of the hadith. We have to go back and read the statements of the people of the past to get an understanding of it, because of the strength of the Arabic language and how vast the meanings are. You see that the Prophet ﷺ, he would say maybe 10 or 15 words, that a person could go and explain those 10 or 15 words in a whole volume. And of course, we know that the Prophet ﷺ was given a jawami al-kalim, that he was given the ability to say a few words with a very, very vast meaning. But the point is that can only come through the Arabic language. You don't find that in the English language, and you don't find that in any other language on the face of this earth. I mean, English is not even a natural language in the first place. It's a compilation of different languages. It's a hodgepodge of languages. But as far as all the natural languages on the earth, you don't find any language that has the type of expression that the Arabic language has. And that's why when you read the Quran, and that's why it has that type of effect on you. And when you read the hadith, it has that effect on you, where you have to think about it. You have to really, sometimes, even when you're reading the Quran, you have to put the mushaf down, and you have to think about it. You have to go back to the tafsir. You have to read. You have to look at, just to get the true understanding of the ayat, because the ayat, the meaning is so vast in the Arabic language. And of course, the one science that helps us to understand the Arabic language more than any other science is Nahw. If you study sarf, it will open up the doors to a lot of vocabulary. So you will have a good understanding of what you're reading, and what the words are, whether it's a verb, whether it's a ism, whether it's a masdar, whether it's ism fa'il, ism maf'ul, and things like that. But the Nahw, it opens up the understanding of of what you're saying, or what the person's saying, or what you're reading. So when you're reading the Quran, and you're able to understand the function of every single word in that sentence of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, that's when you start to truly grasp the real meaning as far as the Arabic language is concerned. Now, of course, we still have to go back to the tafsir. We can't rely only on the Arabic language when we're trying to understand the Quran. And the Arabic language is not sufficient because, as you understand, there's a lot of words that have meanings in Islam that don't have those. Those were not the original meanings in the Arabic language. For example, the word kafara. Kafara in the Arabic language, it originally means satara. You know, you also have fasaqa. Fasaqa, the original meaning in the Arabic language, it was, khuruj. And fasaqa means kharaja. So, I mean, you have, different meanings. Like, for example, sabab. When you see the word sabab in the Quran, Surah Al-Hajj, it means a rope. A rope. And, of course, now, as you see, sabab, we use it always to just for the meaning of the word meaning, and not meaning, reason, the reason for something, like sabab bi kada, for that reason. But you see it in the Quran, you see the word sabab in Surah Al-Hajj, it means a rope, and things like that. We have to go back to the tafsir and to understand, the real understanding of what the ayat means. To understand it from we understand the Quran through the Quran, we understand the Quran through the Sunnah, we understand the Quran through the interpretation of the Sahaba, and we understand the Quran through the Arabic language. So there are a lot of words that we can understand just based on the Arabic language, but the one thing that we can't understand based on only the Arabic language is the issues of Nahw, and what the function of these words are, and how we can understand that sentence. So it's very, very important. And it's the most noble of all sciences. And that's why you see that the ulama of the past, they gave more emphasis on explaining the books of Nahw and writing books in Nahw more than anything else. In fact, the books of Nahw were put together before the dictionaries. The dictionaries came later, and they started compiling all the words in the Arabic language because, of course, after the opening up of Sham, the fall of Rome, and a lot of the people from different areas of Persia started coming into Islam. And the people in Sham at that time also, their language, they didn't speak Arabic. The majority of the people. You had certain tribes from amongst the Arabs that had gone to Sham, but they were under the control of the Roman Empire. So a lot of the people there, they didn't speak Arabic. In Egypt, they weren't, because the Egyptians are not originally Arabs. When the Muslims opened up those countries, and then the Arabs went and stayed there, and then they mixed with the people, and then the language became Arabic. So you see that throughout North Africa. So all these people, like on the west coast of Africa, you had the Berbers that were coming into Islam. So the whole issue is you have people that their language was not Arabic, and they were coming into the religion, and they were making a lot of mistakes. So because of that, and of course the famous story, it goes back to the time of the Khilafah of Ali radiallahu anhu, and Abu Aswad ad-Du'ali, and some people say that his name is Abu Aswad ad-Dili, and Abu Aswad is from the Tabi'in, from the Kibar Tabi'in, and Ali ibn Abi Talib, when they saw the mistakes that were being made from the people, that he ordered Abu Aswad ad-Du'ali to compile the Arabic language, Nahw and all this. So this is the story, whether it's authentic or not. I mean, that's always, there's nothing to show that is actually authentic, but it is a popular story. And if you see that the compilation of Nahw, it started probably in the late 100 Hijri, and the time of Sibawayh. Sibawayh, he wrote a book. It's called Al-Kitab, which is still available in the bookstores today. You can go to any bookstore. In fact, they just reprinted a new copy of it, a very good copy, just recently. So it's available. I had it when I was in Yemen. It's a very, very beneficial book. But of course, he uses the old terminologies. But it's the same information, because obviously the information doesn't change. All right, because the language hasn't changed. So you see, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ up until now, the grammar and nothing about the language has changed. The actual Arabic language, and you don't see that with any other language on the face of the earth today. No other language has that purity and that where it's been kept in its original state for that period of time. Even now in 2021, the grammar that we study today is the same grammar that Sibawayh was writing more than 1,200 years ago in his book Al-Kitab, and the grammar that he was teaching in that time. Because he was born, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was born like in the mid 100s, and he died before 200 Hijri. So he died 180 Hijri. So he died before the period of 200 Hijri, which the 200 Hijri period is the cutoff point for the Arabic language. Whatever was not Arabic at 200 Hijri is not Arabic language after 200 Hijri. So all the nahu, all the vocabulary, everything had been compiled. All right, and in the early days, they didn't write dictionaries. So you didn't have like, for example, like Al-Qamus al-Muhit, Lisan al-Arab, all these books that came later on. But what they did do is they compiled them into books. Like, for example, different books that just give the meanings of words, like based on what they're about. Like, for example, like the words that deal with anger and the levels of anger, the words that deal with like animals and the different types of animals. If the animal has 2 legs, if the animal has 3 legs, if the animal has 4 legs, and all the different names for camels. But all of this was, anyways, it was all compiled and saved through the poetry, because the Arabs in those days, they didn't rely on dictionaries, they relied on poetry. So you had the poetry from Jahiliyyah, and then of course you had the poetry from the Islamic period, you had the poets from the Sahaba, you had the poets then from the Tabi'een, and you had poets from every generation up until 200 Hijri, that they compiled all the Arabic language into that poetry. So the people that made the dictionaries later on, they took all that poetry and they took the meanings. They went through all the poetry and they looked at the different words and they looked at the meanings of those words, and then they compiled those meanings into the dictionaries that you see today. But all of that was taken out of the poetry. So the actual Arabic language was not saved in dictionaries. It was saved in the Quran, the Sunnah, and poetry. Because obviously the Arabs in those days, they didn't write books like, literature. They didn't have literature. And even till today, yeah, I'm not even going to say anything about the Arabic literature, but the Arabs, they were known for poetry. And the Arabic language is a poetic language. And, and you see that. And even like Feroz Abadi, who wrote Qamus al-Muhit, you see even how he set up his dictionary. He set up his dictionary based on the last letter of the verb, the verb form, the 3-letter verb form. So, for example, if you were looking up the word madhab, then you would look up the word bat. You would look up from the chapter on bat, and then you would look up dhahaba, and then you would have to go down and find the word madhab. He did that based on the fact that the Arabs, they used the last letter for the poetry, for the qawafi, which is the last letter of the poem. So that's why you see like the lamiyat, the mimiyat, the ones that, the last letter is a lam, the last letter is a mim, and like this. So, because the Arabs, they had that strong, it's a poetic language. And you see that when you read the poetry. There's no poetry like Arabic language. If you were to sit down and read the poetry in Arabic and then you go back and read the poetry in English, you'll laugh. Wallah, you'll laugh. You'll laugh. It's a joke. It's completely joke. Like if you were to read the poetry right now in English, you would probably think like, wow, this is deep. If you read it and then you sat down for like a year reading Arabic poetry, then you went back and read that same poetry in English that you thought was deep, it would seem like a 3rd grader wrote it. That's how it just seems foolish, because number one, the English language, it lacks expression. It lacks expression, and that's why you see that the people to make the English language more appealing to the people, we have to have like a lot of movement with our hands, and we have to have a lot of charisma with the language to make it appealing. Whereas the Arabic language is the word, the meanings of the words and how they hit you, and your ability to put those words together in the sentences. That's what you see that in the Quran. The Quran is a mu'jiza, and it is the mu'jiza of this religion. That each people and each prophet, each messenger came with a miracle, and the miracle of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the Quran. And you understand that when you study nahu, and then after nahu you start to study you go to the poetry and you start to really understand the deep understanding of the Arabic language. When you read the Quran, you see that it's truly a miracle. It's truly a miracle. The way that those words were put together and the way the meanings come together, it's unbelievable. And the type of effect that it has on you, it's unbelievable. So there's no doubt that nahu is very, very important. Now, is it difficult? Yes. Are you going to find difficulties right now going through this book? The majority of the people, yes. Is it worth it? Yes. The difficulties are definitely worth it because you got to look at, always whenever you're trying to, number one, there's nothing that you do in this life that's going to bring you a lot of success that's going to be easy. All right. So that you already have to get that into your head. And every single thing that you do is another stage to more difficulty and more difficulty. So you start at the lower difficulty, like we're starting at al-ajrumiyah. So from al-ajrumiyah, you see like minor difficulties, and you're trying to build up to like alfiyah, which is going to be major difficulties, but you'll be able to handle them by the time you get there. And it won't be so difficult, and you'll be more willing to accept those difficulties. And the beginning is hard because you're getting introduced to new terminologies. You're getting introduced to things about the sentences that you didn't know before. But you have to be patient because it's definitely worth it, because your understanding of the Quran and your understanding of the Sunnah, it counts. Like those two understandings, they count on you and your understanding of the of Nahw. And that's serious. You can understand the Quran without Nahw. Don't get me wrong. But you're going to have a very, very superficial understanding. And you're going to constantly rely on other people telling you, what things mean. And like I said, you still have to go back to the tafsir regardless. But your understanding of the structures and what this is, and, for example, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to you, you can understand it a lot better once you have Nahw. And then you can start to do like the i'rab of the Quran, and then you really start to understand the function of every single word in the Quran and what it's doing and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. And and then you start to even understand like why these words were put together in these structures. It's like I said, it's a miracle. It's a linguistic miracle. It's a miracle, period. Linguistic or not linguistic. But because it is a language, yeah, like I said, you'll never find another book ever like that. The Quran is the Quran. That's it. There's no other book like that. You can forget it. Don't even waste your time looking for it. And they could never come with anything like that. Even amongst all the poets of the Arabs, they could never come with anything even close to being similar to the Quran. So that is a linguistic miracle, and it's a miracle, period. And we want to understand that miracle. So we have to work hard. We have to strive through the difficulties, because what we're trying to get, and always try to keep the end in mind. This is what you're doing this for. You're doing this so you can understand the Quran. So while you're studying Nahw, stop. If you're reading the Quran in English, stop. Just read the Quran in Arabic, and just, because that will help you to motivate yourself more to want to understand it more, because if you want anything that you're doing, sometimes you got to get rid of those crutches. You got those crutches in your life that they kind of prop yourself up on, and they hold you back. And a lot of the times you got to get rid of those crutches, and you got to just set yourself free, and just focus on the Arabic language. Read the Quran in Arabic, read the Sunnah in Arabic, and you start to this way it motivates you to want to understand it more. So as you're studying the Arabic language, as you're studying Nahw, and I don't advise anybody to start studying Nahw if they haven't, you have to have at least the ability to pick up a book, an easy book. I mean, not like, I'm not talking about picking up a volume from the Majmu' al-Fatawa of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. But I'm talking about pick up books from Sheikh Salih Fawzan, Sheikh Bin Baz, Sheikh Uthaymeen, that you could pick up books like this and read, and you can kind of get through. You can understand a good portion of what's being said in these books. If you're at that level, that's the level you want to be at when you start to study Nahw. If you're not at that level, Nahw is going to break your head in half. So you want to focus on, in the beginning, getting a lot of vocabulary, and just try to understand get a general sense of what's being said in the speech. Because Nahw is going to give you an understanding of the very specific point of what's being said. And in this way, when you start to speak, once you understand Nahw, when you speak intentionally. You don't just speak because you don't just say speech that you memorized or that you heard other people saying. Like what you see a lot of the people now, they don't speak with intention. They just speak out of just rote memorization. So when you say things and you want to become truly articulate in the language, then you have to speak with purpose. You have to speak with the intention of saying what you're saying, with the meaning that you're saying. You understand? And the only way that you can do that is by understanding the language, understanding the structure, and how these words, how we put them into these sentences to have that meaning. So you're speaking with intent. You're speaking intentional, and you're living intentional. And that's what you want to be doing. You don't want to just be living accidentally and just saying things that you heard often repeated phrases, and then your whole life becomes like a a cliche type. Your whole language is just nothing but a bunch of cliches. You want to speak with intention, and you want to be able to put the words together in proper sentences with the intention of what you're trying to say correctly, and understand the intentions of other people. Okay, and that's why you see, if you take a person who studied grammar and a person who hasn't studied grammar, you're always gonna see a lot of arguments happening. And the arguments happen because the person who studies grammar, he understands what the person's saying. You understand? But the person who's saying what he's saying, he doesn't really understand what he's saying. He's just repeating things, but he doesn't really grasp the meaning. So when he says, "So you're saying this?" He's like, "No, I'm not saying that." And then argument starts, because that person is not speaking with real intention. He's not speaking intentionally. He's just speaking from things that he just picked up along the way, things that he learned from his mother and his school teachers. So when you want to speak with intention and you want to live with, speak intentionally and with purpose, then you have to study this. You have to study the grammar. You have to study grammar in any language to do that. So even in the English language, if you didn't study grammar, you don't really understand what you're really saying. And I'm not saying like go waste your time studying the English grammar, but it's just a reality. If you are going to be a person who's going to be speaking in front of people, you have to study the grammar to at least have a correct understanding of what you're saying, and get that idea and how to articulate your ideas to the people. All right, but right now we're going to focus on Arabic grammar, not English grammar. So inshallah, I'm going to read from the Muqaddimah now, and then from tomorrow inshallah we'll start the book. So he said Muqaddimah في علم النحو. He said اعلم أنه ينبغي لكل شارع في فن من الفنون أن يتصوره ويعرفه قبل الشروع فيه ليكون على بصيرة فيه وإلا لم ينتفع به ويحصل التصور بمعرفة أمور منها. So he said to know that every person before he starts studying a science or teaching a science, before he starts studying a science, that he should في فن من الفنون أن يتصوره, and that he should get a general idea of what the science is about, before he goes into the science, so he knows what he's getting himself into. وَيَعْرِفَهُ قَبْلَ الشُّرُوعِ فِيهِ, so he can understand it before he gets started on it. لِيَكُونَ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ فِيهِ, so he can go into the study of that science with a clear idea, clear vision of where he's going. He's not just like bumping in the walls in the darkness. وَإِلَّا لَمْ يَنْتَفِعْ بِهِ, if he doesn't do this, if he doesn't have that clear understanding, then he's not going to benefit from that science. He said, وَيَحْصُلُ التَّصَوُّرُ بِمَعْرِفَةِ أُمُورٍ, he said, in this type of understanding of what you're getting involved in, it comes about through different things that he's going to mention now. He said, منها تعريفه وموضوعه وثمرته وشرفه ونسبته وواضعه وحكمه. And he's going to go through these one by one. So I'm not going to explain this now, because we're going to explain them one by one. So these are the things that we need to know before we get started on any science, not just Arabic, not just nahu, but anything. Whether you're learning tawheed, aqidah, whether you're learning mustalah hadith, whether you're studying fiqh, usul al-fiqh, whatever. These are things that you need to know before you get started. Well, he said ta'arifuhu. He said the knowing of, like, what is this science? And he said lughatan, and of course he's talking about the word nahu. He said yutlaq ala ma'anin kathira. He said that the word nahu, it has different meanings, all right, according to the usage. He said al-qasd. The qasd is like an objective or goal, or what you're intending to get to. So he said, like, he gave you the sentence nahawtu jihad zaydin. Nahawtu jihad zaydin. It means that I moved with the purpose of going in the direction of Zayd. Okay, ay qasadtuha. So whenever you like taqsud shay, when you're walking to something with the purpose of getting directly to that thing, you understand? So this is qasada. And he said al-qasd. He said al-mithl. Al-mithl is like an example. He said taqulu Zaydun nahu Ali. Like Zayd is like Ali. He said mithluhu. You know that he is similar to him. He said al-miqdar is like an amount. So he said taqulu indi nahu alf. He said I have close to 1,000 riyals. That's al-miqdar, the amount of 1,000. Ay qadru alf. He said وَمَعْنَى الْأَوَّلْ أَكْثَرُهَا وَأَظْهَرُهَا. He said the first meaning, which is al-qasd, is the meaning that's used the most. Okay. وَاصْطِلَاهًا, and then we said istilahan, it means the terminologies. Well, actually we didn't say this, but you're going to see this a lot. I mentioned this in other books, but not in this book. The istilah, it goes back to the terminologies that are used for a specific science. Like you could say, like for example, jargon. I guess you can call it jargon. So in nahu, in mustalah hadith, in usul al-fiqh, each science that you study, they're going to have terminologies that are specific, that have meanings that are specific to that science. So for example, he gave you the meanings of nahu and the language, but that's not what we understand when we use nahu now, when we're dealing with the science of nahu. So now we want to know what the meaning of this is, the meaning of nahu as far as the science is concerned, the term nahu in the science. So he said, واصطلاحا علم بأصول مستنبطة من كلام العرب يعرف بها أحوال أواخر الكلم إعرابا وبناء. So he said, علم, it's a science بأصول, with the principles, like foundational principles. مستنبطة, it means that they are taken out, they are extracted, they are learned from the من كلام العرب, from the speech of the Arabs. And of course we know this from the Quran, the Sunnah, and the poetry of the Arabs. And of course all the speech of the people that came before 200 Hijri. So the principles of Nahu were taken out of the speech of the Arabs. يُعْرَفْ بِهَا أَحْوَالُ أَوَاخِرَ الكلم. So he said يُعْرَفُ, and it, so the focus of Nahu is, the focus is on the last letter and the changing of the last letter based on what comes before it. What is the based on its function and what is causing it to function in that way. So like for example, like you say, like for Zaydun, okay, Zaydun qa'imun, Zaydun, okay, Ra'aytu Zaydan, Marartu bi Zaydin. So you see Zayd is one word, but in each sentence the ending of the word changed. So in the first sentence, Zaydun bid-dhamma, Zaydun qa'imun. In the second sentence, Ra'aytu Zaydan. Now you see fatha. All right, and in the last sentence, Marartu bi Zaydin bil-kasra. So here you see that the ending changed, and that's the focus on Nahu, is why that ending changed. Why did it go from Zaydun to Zaydan to Zaydin? And this is the focus of the Arabic language, ahwal awakhir al-kalim. It's focusing on the state of the last letter of the word. I'raban wa bina'an. I'raban is if it changes. So for example, Ra'aytu Zaydan, Marartu bi Zaydin, wa hadha Zaydun. See, it changed. And this is called i'rab, al-mu'rab. Okay, this word is mu'rab because it changes. But then you have words, for example, like amsi. Ja'a Zaydun amsi. Ma ra'aytu mundu amsi. It doesn't change. No matter what word you put in front of it, this word doesn't change. Also like qabalu, min qabalu. Ja'a Zaydun qablu Zaydin, min qabli. You could say min qabli, or you could say min qablu Zaydin. It depends on what you want to use. So it could be mabni or it can be mu'rab based on the person and what he's how he wants to say it. But you see it in the Quran with both. All right. So the point is that i'rab, the ending changes. Bina'an, it doesn't change. It stays in one state, and we're going to see this inshallah because there's going to be chapters on these, so no need to explain in detail right now. It's going to come inshallah. He said وَمَوْضُوعُهُ. So now that's what understanding what nahu is. So nahu is focusing on the last letter and how it changes, okay, or how it doesn't change in the case of it being mabni. He said وَمَوْضُوعُهُ. He said where do we get the language from? He said al-kalimatul arabiyyah, and not where we get it from, but what's the topic? What's the subject of this? He said al-kalimatul arabiyyah min haythu yubhathu an ahwal awakhiriha min jihat al-i'rab wal-bina. So he said al-kalimat. So this is the plural of the word. We have two plurals. You see al-kalim and al-kalimat. It's the plural of kalima. Al-kalimatul arabiyyah, the Arabic words, min haythu yubhathu an ahwal awakhiriha. But we're focusing on, again, the ending of we're focusing on Arabic words, but the ending of the Arabic words. Min jihat al-i'rab wal bina. From the direction of it being either mu'rab or it being mabni. That means whether the ending changes or doesn't change, but the focus is only on the Arabic words. Obviously, we're not going to be dealing with words that are not Arabic. Like, for example, if you take a sentence in English and you say, Zayd went to the store, there's no i'rab here because it's not even Arabic. So he said, وَثَمَرَتُهُ. what's the benefit? What are the fruits of learning this science? He said, صون اللسان عن الخطأ في الكلام والاستعانة بها لفهم معاني الكتاب والسنة ومخاطبة العرب بعضهم بعضا. Okay, so he said, صون اللسان عن الخطأ. He said to fix your tongue from the mistakes that can be made في الكلام and in speech. والاستعانة به على فهم معاني الكتاب. And to use it to assist you and to understand معاني, the meanings of the Quran and the Sunnah. All right, ومخاطبة العرب بعضهم بعضا. And of course, just general speech between Arabs, between themselves. Like for example, so you learn the Arabic language so you can, speak to other Arabic speakers. And the Arabs also, because it's their language, so they use it to speak between each other. But we use it mainly for the two first purposes: the purpose of fixing our tongues so we don't make those mistakes, and for the purpose of understanding the meanings of the Quran and the Sunnah. He said, "Wa sharafu," and the sharafu is like status, it's ranking, because sharaf is like a nobility. He said, "Bi sharafi thamaratihi." So based on what you're using the Arabic language for, that's going to be how noble the science is that you're studying. So if you're just learning nahu, so you could talk to the guy in the baqala, the dukan, then it's not going to be very sharif, is it? But if you're learning it to give da'wah, to understand the kitab wa sunnah first off, to learn your religion, and then to give da'wah, so also because you might be giving khutbah, so you need to understand nahu so you don't make these mistakes, just mistakes that you shouldn't be making in the Arabic language. So things like that, then that of course that would be sharif, that would have a high ranking as far as the purpose of why you're learning it. Okay, he said وَنِسْبَتُهُ, and he said وَنِسْبَتُهُ means what it goes back to. Okay, وَهُوَ مِنَ الْعُلُومِ الْعَرَبِيَّةِ وَهِيَ 12 عِلْمًا. He said it goes back to the sciences of the language, the 12 language, and there are 12 sciences of the language. And of course, nahu huwa ashrafuhu. It's the most noble of all the sciences. وَوَاضِعُهُ. This is who put this science together. He said, المشهور أن أول من وضعه أبو الأسود الدؤلي رحمه الله بأمر أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله عنه. And he said this is the popular opinion that the first person that put the nahu together is Abu Aswad al-Du'ali, by the order of the then Khalifa Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali bin Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu. And like I said, this story is not authentic, but it is the popular story, and this is the story that everybody says this is what happened. So Allah alam, I mean, it's a possibility. وإنما قلت المشهور ولم أقول أول من وضعه لأنه لم يوجد سند صحيح ينص على ذلك. So he said, he's explaining why he said the word mashhur, because he said it's popular. He didn't say was sahih. He said because there's no chain of narration that really, there's no authentic chain. لا يوجد سند صحيح. There's no authentic chain of narration that shows who, if this story is true or not. So we don't know the authenticity of the story. So he said, وَحُكْمَهُ, and this is the ruling. Like, what is it? Is it, is it wajib? Is it mustahab? Is it mubah? What is it? He said, الوجوب الكفائي وقد يتعين على بعض دون بعض كمن أراد تفسير القرآن العظيم مثلا. He said the asl of it is الوجوب الكفائي, and the wujub al-kifai is if one group of amongst the people perform this action, then the obligation doesn't go on to the other people. So the obligation is fulfilled with a small group of people doing it, but it's not an obligation upon every single Muslim to do it. So it's not an obligation for every Muslim to study nahu. All right, it's not an obligation, but it is an obligation that there are Muslims in each area that have the ability to teach the people nahu. If you look in an area where there are Muslims and the Muslims want to study their religion and there's nobody there to teach nahu, then it becomes an obligation that a group of people stand up and take on this obligation. If nobody does it, then it goes on all the people. If nobody stands up, and so what a small group of people do, they stand up and they take on the responsibility to learn the science so they can go back and teach the people, so to take the obligation off the rest of the people. And this is farad al-kifai. Farad al-ain, it means that everybody has to do it. It's wajib on that every specific person. And he said, وَقَدْ يَتَعَيَّنَ عَلَى بَعْضٍ دُونَ بَعْضٍ. And he said, in certain circumstances, it could become farad al-ain on certain individuals. He said, كَمَنْ أَرَادَ تَفْسِيرُ الْقُرْآنِ. Like if a person wanted to do tafsir al-Quran, yeah, he has to learn nahu. There's no way that you're going to do tafsir al-Quran and you don't know nahu. That's foolish. The only way that you'll be doing tafsir al-Quran if you don't know nahu is now you're just going to be giving your opinion. Nah, that's foolish. All right, there's no way that you can go and do tafsir of the Quran without understanding nahu and other sciences that require nahu. So in that case, in those specific cases, it becomes farad ayn on that person only, or anybody that wants to teach tafsir. But it doesn't become farad ayn on the rest of the people. All right, it only becomes on that one person only. All right, so that's it. And inshallah tomorrow we'll get started on this. Like I said, don't worry about the difficulties. Just keep the end in mind. The end is that you're trying to get to the understanding of the Kitab and Sunnah. And not just that, but you also, once you understand this, you want to go out and you want to teach the people this. And because our main goal, especially in the West, when we're talking about America, Britain, France, or any other country, is that we want to spread the studying of the Arabic language amongst the Muslims in the West. All right, as far as the West in general, we don't care about it. But we do care about the state of the Muslims in the West. And we do want the Muslims to get to the point where like our lessons can be in the Arabic language, where we're teaching in the Arabic language. So these are just the basics that we have to get them done. You understand? You have to get the Arabic language. You have to get it. For you to understand the Quran, and you cannot understand it without the Arabic language. So the Arabic language is wajib upon every single Muslim to do his best to study it. To study to the best of his capabilities is wajib. And this is on every Muslim. This is not like, okay, a few Muslims do it and then, وَسَقَطَنَا عَنِ الْآخِرِينَ. No. Every Muslim has to do it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He spoke through the Quran. The Quran is His word and it's in Arabic. So we need the Arabic language to understand the Quran and understand the Sunnah. So this is obligation on every single Muslim to do this to the best of his capabilities. So we have to do this. We have to work to spread the Arabic language, to teach the Arabic language in all the masajid, so that the people now, when we start to give our lessons are in Arabic. Our lessons won't be in English anymore, and this is an improvement. And the Muslims start to really understand their religion, Well, maybe one day, inshallah, we can get to the point where even in America, we're teaching Tafsir Kathir in Arabic. We're teaching, Al-Bukhari in Arabic in the masajid, and everybody understands what's going on. We can have our own marakas. We can, we have the people there, the people that have knowledge, they go and they teach the people. And the people go and they study these sciences with the different people that study these sciences overseas. And everybody benefits from each other. But first it has to start with the Arabic language. We have to take this very, very seriously. Not just the learning of the Arabic language, but also the encouraging of the Muslims to want to study the Arabic language and to take it seriously every day of our lives. Wa ilahuna subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.